Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. I appreciate you being here. In today's video, we are going to cover one of the most important free-to-play champions in all of Raid Shadow Legends, and that is Scyl of the Drakes. Now, I haven't done too many champion guides on my channel just yet, but I do believe that Scyl of the Drakes is so important to so many players' accounts that she deserves a spotlight all her own. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to build her. We're going to talk about where you can use her. We're going to talk about some team compositions you can put around her to get the most effect out of Scyl of the Drakes. The day you log in and get your Scyl of the Drakes for any free-to-play player is a huge day. It transforms your account, and we're going to show exactly why this champion does that to everybody's account. Even if you're a spender, the day you get Scyl of the Drakes is a pretty good day. Now, it happens to be 6 months in. We can look right now. If we go into our login, daily login rewards, go back to 180 days, and on 180 days, here you get your Scyl of the Drake. So 180 days is a really big day. Everybody knows who you get on 180 days. And that's because this is the most important login reward champion by far. The only one I think who even comes close is Vizix, and the impact that Vizix has on your account, while significant, pales in comparison to Scyl of the Drakes. I think the only other sort of early to mid game moment that compares is maybe completing your Arbiter missions. Arbiter and Scyl of the Drakes can form the backbone of any free-to-play account in that first year. And so when you get these two champions, all of a sudden your account will feel very different. And that is one of the reasons why Scyl is so important. So now let's take a look at the champion and see what she actually does and why she can be so valuable to any account. Okay, so here she is in the Barbarians faction in the index. And you can see right away from her stats that she has very good stats. She has basically 20k HP. That's a nice large HP pool. Defense of almost 1400, which is very solid. Her speed's just a tad low at 95, which is, you know, if she was faster, she'd be even more OP. She does have a good base resistance of 40. So her stats are good. Very good, actually. I think her speed is the only thing where you could even say, you know, hey, we could use 3 or 4 more speed on her. That would be great. But otherwise, her stats are fantastic. Taking a look at her kit, her A1 hits one enemy, has a 40% chance when booked of placing the large decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. It also has a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%. This is a very good A1. You might think, oh, well, it's only a single hitter, so that's not as good in places like Fire Knight. But in fact, she's an excellent Fire Knight champion. Not only will she help you handle the waves, but that decreased speed and decreased turn meter both play in the Fire Knight. So if you don't have somebody who has a decreased speed on the A1, she now is your champion for that purpose. And you're going to have that decreased speed out there quite a bit. You know, it is a 40% chance, and you think, okay, that's not super high. But you're going to find that it lands a lot, and especially if she's going fast, if you have a lot of turn meter fill in your team, you might go 2 rounds to every time the boss goes, so you're going to get a lot of opportunities to get that slow out there. In addition, even though she's not a major turn meter decreaser, she does have a 50% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 15%, and that's going to supplement your turn meter decrease. That's useful against a lot of bosses. So any boss where turn meter control is valuable, she brings that decreased speed plus a little bit of extra target turn meter decrease. And so she can really help you out in a lot of boss fights just with her A1. And the rest of her kit is sick too. So let's go and look at some of her other skills. The A2 attacks all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a 20% chance, books up to 35% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn. Now, because it's each hit and she hits 2 times, this means you're actually going to land a stun on each target roughly 58% of the time. I think that's the number that you're going to be effectively landing your stun. So 58% of the time, you're going to stun each target once she's fully booked. You can book this down to a 3-turn cooldown. This will help a ton in wave content. She is a Doom Tower solution. She is a dungeon solution because she handles all of the waves. You can even use her in places like Spider Boss, where you want to stun up the spiderlings to reduce your incoming damage on your spiderling tank. This skill is extremely valuable in a lot of places, and you probably don't have access to a whole lot of AoE stuns early in the game. You can even put her in a stun set if you want more chances for stuns. I don't personally do that, but I know a lot of players who do that. and that would even increase this AoE's chance to land more stuns. And because it's on a 3-turn cooldown, that's still pretty solid. Plus, it adds an additional CC to her A1. So that's something to consider. We'll talk about her builds more in a little bit. Let's keep going with her kit. The A3 is her revive. Now, it is a single target revive. It's on a 4-turn cooldown, 50% HP with a 50% ally protection buff on them for 2 turns. This is an okay revive. She's a very good reviver because she is extremely tanky. So she's always the last one to die on a team, or almost always the last one to die on a team. So she's always going to be there to revive another ally and give them an ally protection buff. So they're likely to survive at least another round or 2. And this synergizes well with her passive also. Her passive is one of the most powerful skills in her kit. Heals all allies by 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. This is at the start of her turn. Also places a 30% increased speed buff on a random ally for 2 turns. Now that can be a little bit tricky. That means speed tuning her in like a clan boss team is almost impossible. In fact, it is really impossible because this is on a passive and you can't turn off her passive. So somebody's going to get a speed increase buff and you don't know exactly who that's going to be. So she's not great for Demon Lord Clan Boss, although if you're having trouble staying alive in Demon Lord Clan Boss and you want to extend your fights, she certainly can help you with that. But remember, the heals all allies by 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn. That happens whether or not she is CC'd. So if she is frozen or stunned or feared, when her turn starts, this passive goes off. She doesn't have to take a turn in order for this passive to happen. So it's impossible to eliminate completely unless you get 100% heal reduction on everybody. That would be the only way to prevent this heal from going through. Now, one of the things about Scyl of the Drakes that is so important for free-to-play accounts is how versatile she is. If you look at any part of her kit, you might not say any of these skills are super impressive, but you put them together, you put them with the stats that she has, and all of a sudden you have a champion that you can take into every single area of the game. And I'm going to show you my Scyl of the Drakes and where I take her in the game, just to prove you can basically play her anywhere. So this is my Scyl of the Drakes, and just so you know, I don't think I've rebuilt her in over a year, maybe a year and a half. It's been a very long time since I've even looked at her kit. So when I was reviewing her for this video, I was a little bit embarrassed about the state of her kit, or not her kit, but the state of her gear. However, I didn't change it. I didn't want to change it. I want to show you the fact that I've been able to use her for maybe a year or a year and a half in this particular build, and I've taken her everywhere that I need to take her, and she's done the job just great. So let's go ahead and look at the stats first. So I do have a nice large HP pool on her. That's going to help keep her alive. Obviously, she gets 10% of her own HP each turn, so she's going to be getting over a 7,000 health point heal. Her attack doesn't matter at all, so you want to keep that nice and low. I do have her over 4K defense. There are sort of diminishing returns over 4K. You could go push her to 4,500 or 5,000 if you wanted to make her super tanky, but I actually think that once you get to about 4,000, in between 4,000 and 4,500, you want to start focusing much more on HP than on defense because HP scales better at that point. Her speed is actually really slow. This is one of the more embarrassing things about this build to me. She's only running at 216 speed. Now, every time she takes a turn, she heals her allies. So the more turns that she takes, the more healing she puts out. So you have 2 ways of doing that. The first way is to build her very fast. Get her as fast as you can. I would prefer to have her up around 250, 260. That would be fantastic. The other option is you can put her in a relentless set. Relentless set has an opportunity to give you an additional turn. You get an extra turn. So if you build her in a relentless set, you're going to get a turn, you're going to heal everybody, and then you're going to immediately take another turn, and you're going to heal everybody again. So a relentless set is also a great option to pump out those heals. But either way, even if you're in a relentless set, you want to be over 216 speed if you can be. This is a fairly slow build. I don't know what to say about it. You know, obviously, early game, reaching a speed of 216 is going to be a little bit tricky, but I have champions who are running over 300 speed at this point. I could definitely put another 50 speed on this champion somehow without losing any other stats. So yeah, a little bit embarrassing for me, but she still does a great job even at this slow speed. Now, the other embarrassing part of her kit here is that she lacks resistance. Resistance isn't as critical on Scyl of the Drakes as it is on some other supports, especially like cleansers and so forth. because her passive just goes off even if she's CC'd, you don't really care that much about resistance, at least in PvE content. Obviously, drop defense is going to reduce her survivability, and it's also going to reduce her damage that she puts out. Decrease accuracy would be bad both for her A1 and her A2. So I would like to have a bit more resistance here. But again, I wanted to show you her build untouched, unmodified. Again, I've been running her for over a year in this build at 149 resistance, and she gets the job done just fine. Now, thank goodness her accuracy is really where it needs to be. I wouldn't mind putting a little bit more accuracy on her, but at 340, she can do the job in every dungeon up to stage 25. She does quite well in Doom Tower, probably hard Doom Tower about halfway up, and then she starts to miss some of her skills. So if I really wanted to use her more in hard Doom Tower, which I don't currently do, but you could, you would probably want to push her accuracy up over 400. And you could do that on Scyl of the Drakes. That would be useful. If you're going to use her in Arena, you might want a little bit more accuracy, especially if you're in like Gold Arena. You want to have that accuracy probably up around 400 as well. So that would be a really good number to shoot for. But again, at 300 accuracy, you're going to do fine in every single dungeon up to stage 25. Now, as far as her sets are concerned, you can see I have a bunch of mixed sets here. I do have one perception set that's giving me a bit of speed and accuracy. You can see I have a defensive percentage chest plate. I should definitely put her in a 6-star defensive chest plate. That would be great. I don't even have much speed on this chest plate. I do have a bit of resistance and HP, which is good. The attack is a complete waste. Speed boots are a must on her. Again, I could switch these to a 6-star, but you do see that we have all good defensive stats, the accuracy for her debuffs, and then HP and defense all the way down. The gloves are HP percentage. What I really like to do with most of my tanks is I will put one piece of HP percentage and one piece of defense percentage gear on them. You can decide which one is more valuable based on, the main stat of the champion or what you need out of the champion. But again, we're looking for defensive stats, so speed, resistance, accuracy, defense are all good on her. The Immortal set brings a little bit of extra survivability. I actually really like this. This is another way you can go with Scyl of the Drakes. You could put her in Immortal or Regeneration, get her really, really healy so that she's constantly healing herself, and that way she's always alive to heal the rest of the team and even revive them if they die. So that's one option. We've talked about some builds so far. We've talked about you can put her in Relentless gear to get her more turns. You can put her in Immortal and Regeneration gear to make her nearly immortal. You can go ahead and put her in Perception and Speed gear to get her very fast, make sure she lands her debuffs. You could put her in purely defensive gear, like this Resilience set that I've got going, or a defense set or something else, in order to make her very tanky and hit a bit harder. You can also go with something like a shield set or a bolster set or something like that, even a guardian set. So if you are looking for other sets that you want to potentially put her in, you can basically do anything that a tank would do or anything that a healer would do or anything that a debuffer would do. All of those options are good. So for instance, Guardian here, the wearer absorbs 10% of all damage to allied champions and heals by 10% every turn. So now she is soaking up the damage, keeping the rest of your team alive by doing that. And then she gets the extra 10% heal on top of her passive, meaning she's going to heal 20% every turn. That would be 23% if you threw in an Immortal set. So you could do something like that. She is an amazing tank and healer and reviver and debuffer. This is why she's so versatile. She does all of those jobs well. She's not the best reviver, but she's a good reviver. She's not the best tank, but she's a very good tank, right? She's not the best debuffer, but she's a very good debuffer. And so you have all of those options. And so you can't really build her wrong unless you can't decide how to build her, right? You don't want to just build her without purpose. So pick something that you think you're going to focus on and then build her in a in gear that's going to accomplish that, preferably as good, gear as you can squeeze onto her. So really take some of your best pieces, make sure that she's got as many 5-star, 6-star pieces as you can get on her. And then, don't do what I did and just leave her alone for like a year. Keep upgrading her because she's going to continue to be valuable for a very long time. Now, when we get to Masteries, you want to think also about the synergy with the sets that you happen to build into her. And that's going to depend on where you want to use her the most. Again, you can use her everywhere, but you may want to focus on specific things. I used her primarily as a progression champion. What that means is I needed her in Doom Tower waves and I needed her in dungeons. I didn't need her in Clan Boss. I didn't need her in Arena. I needed her for Doom Tower waves and I needed her for the waves before bosses and then the boss fights. So that's why I focused more on accuracy, so she could land her stuns and she could land her slows and her turn meter decrease. And with that in mind, you'll see that my masteries also synergize well with that intention. So as you can see, for masteries, I have chosen the offense and support tree. The good news is you can choose any combination of trees here. You could choose offense and defense, defense and support, offense and support like I have. It really doesn't matter because there's so many masteries that are going to improve her abilities that you can really choose whatever feels good to you and go with that. Now, I mentioned that I run her in dungeons. And so because I run her in dungeons, I wanted to make sure that I was landing extra damage. She doesn't bring a ton of damage, and so I wanted to make sure she had War Master. So that was just a decision I made early on. But if I wanted to increase her survivability and I was worried a little bit less about her damage, I could go down the defense and support trees. Additionally, I use her primarily as a healer. She keeps my team alive, keeps them moving. So I've gone with a heal and revive selection here in the support tree. So I've chosen Steadfast to make sure that she's more survivable and her heals are larger. And then I've gone with all of the heal masteries here to improve her heals. I have gone into the Lore of Steel to get a little bit of extra bonus out of the base stats of my gear sets. And then the two ones I've gone here at the end are Sniper. Increases the chances of placing any debuff from skills or artifacts by 5%. Now, this will not affect your stun chances, but it will affect your chance of landing your slow and landing your turn meter decrease. So that increases that by 5%, so that's not inconsiderable. And then finally, I've chosen Spirit Haste. Spirit Haste is really good for revivers. Let me just show you. Yep. So increases speed by 8 for each dead ally. And basically what that does is when other allies die, she gets faster and faster. She's going to come back around to her revive more quickly. Again, this would work better if I built her even faster than I have. She's a bit slow for this, but this gives her some extra speed when she needs it. If you decided to go down the defense tree, some important defensive masteries could be this delayed death, reduces the damage this champion receives from a specific enemy by 0.75%. So against bosses, she's going to take less and less damage as the fight goes on until she takes a max reduction of 6%. Another interesting mastery on her could be Harvest Despair. She has an AoE stun, so this would place leeches out there during those AoE stuns, and that could potentially help keep your team alive during very difficult wave content. So if you need even extra survivability on your team, this is a mastery you could consider. Over in the support tree, you could also choose to go down the accuracy side, make her more of a debuffer if you're not as worried about survivability. Maybe you have a very tanky team already, or you have another healer who's helping her out. In that case, you could go down the right side. You could even go and get Evil Eye, which would give you a little bit of extra turn meter control for things like Fire Knight. That could be a very good option as well. As far as blessings are concerned, I think you have a lot of options. I chose Chainbreaker because this has a chance to remove any CC at the beginning of this champion's turn. Now, again, her passive goes off whether she is CC'd or not, but I wanted to make her a little bit more survivable. So this is going to give me more defense. And then additionally, if she's not CC'd, she has a chance to slow. She has a chance to decrease turn meter. She has a chance for that AoE stun. So I think it's valuable to have her break out of CCs whenever possible. But even if you didn't decide to go with this, I would say go with either something that increases your defensive stats, maybe your accuracy or maybe your resistance, and can bring some value into the area that you decide you are going to use her in most. So if you don't like this blessing, there are a lot of other blessings you could bring her with. If you wanted to increase the amount of damage you do in boss fights, you could potentially take something like Brimstone. If you were going to use her more in arena, you're going to have her with decent accuracy, you could consider Polymorph. If you want her in other fights where you maybe already have somebody who brings Brimstone, you could go with some Cruelty here. Cruelty is going to give you attack, which isn't great, but it does reduce the target's defense, so you could reduce the boss's defense, and then everybody else would do more damage. So you have a lot of options, and it is the kind of thing where Scyl of the Drakes is so versatile and can be used in so many places that you almost can't build her wrong. And that goes for the sets that you put on her. It goes for the masteries that you choose. It even goes for the blessing that you choose. but you do want those three things to synergize as well as possible. So think of a primary reason for her and then build her in that direction. You'll still be able to use her in other places. I even to this day still use her in 3v3 arena every once in a while. I'll stick her in live arena every once in a while. So you can get uses from her outside of your primary build, but by having a focus, by just choosing a particular place where you want to use her, you're going to be able to make her very effective in that particular fight or in that particular challenge. Now, just to emphasize that versatility, I want to show you that the fact that I actually did pull a second Scyl of the Drakes not that long ago, and I started building her right away. You can see she's 5-star ascended. I've got her in regeneration and immortal gear. I haven't done really a lot of masteries on her, but I have started to go down a different path. I've started to do defense and support to make an even tankier version of Scyl of the Drakes for when I need that additional durability. So it's very cool. I actually I have a team composition where I run both of these champions on the same team. It's really fun for me. She's an amazing champion, and I think once you get her, you're going to be throwing her into all sorts of compositions. So let's go look at some of those compositions, and you can see where I use her. So one of the best places to use Scyl of the Drakes is absolutely in wave content, and there's no more challenging wave content, no more pure wave content than in Doom Tower. So here I am in hard Doom Tower. You can see it is hard. And I'm on, I'm all the way up to floor 81 right now, but I just wanted to show you that even in hard Doom Tower, even in the build that I have her currently in where she's not that fast, I still use her in a lot of Doom Tower floors, but I also use her against Doom Tower bosses. So you can definitely make her one of your carries for Doom Tower floors. She's going to bring you that CC. She's going to bring you the heals on her passive. She's going to bring you the tankiness. But you also have an opportunity to use her in Doom Tower boss fights. So right here in Scarab Boss, you can see that she is part of my team. And if you're thinking, well, you know, why in Scarab Boss? Obviously, she keeps the team running. And that's basically her job. She can land the debuffs. But when we looked at her kit in my roster, you'll notice that on my main Scyl of the Drakes, I have a blood shield ring. And this allows her to get a shield every time she hits, and that's what you need for Scarab Boss, because the Scarab Boss counterattacks anybody who doesn't have a shield on them. But the blood shield ring just provides that shield. So by doing so, I can make sure that she is in the team, she's healing the team up constantly, she's also dropping any debuffs like the slows that she need. She can help you with the affinity here. She has strong affinity against the Scarab Boss, so that is very good as well. So she's going to take less damage. She's going to make sure that she lands her debuffs. She's going to hit a little bit harder, so she's going to get all of those advantages as well. I also use her against the Griffin boss. Again, one of the things you have to watch out for sometimes is turn meter decrease. She does have turn meter decrease. So like for Bommel, she's not always a great choice because she does have a chance of landing that decrease speed and that turn meter decrease. And both debuffs and turn meter can be a problem with Bommel. But her chances of those are low, so you can risk bringing her into those teams. But she's very good if you need a slow or a turn meter reduction on a boss. And also, again, she's such a great healer. 10% HP for everybody every turn, whether she is stunned or frozen or feared or anything. It doesn't matter. Again, if you can get her faster or get her in a relentless set, she's going to do that job even better. And as far as progression champs go for dungeons, she is literally as good as they come. I put her in every single dungeon along the way. Now I'm over 2 years into the game. I'm almost 2.5 years into the game. So I've pulled her out of most of the teams that I had her in. I don't use her in too many of these fights anymore. But I want to show you that even in my Spider 25 team now that does this in 10 turns and 30 seconds, Scyl of the Drakes is there. She's there for, turn meter reduction. She's there for that slow on the boss on that A1, which is really powerful. And that prevents the boss from getting a turn. And that's what she's here primarily for. Now, I could bring somebody else in who also does that job, but I'm actually doing this off of an ally attack. So she doesn't even need to take a turn in order to get that slow out there. So that's really helpful for me. Now, if I built her really fast, she could potentially attack multiple times. But so she's still here even at stage 25. I think for players who just pull Scyl of the Drakes at 6 months, you're probably going to throw her on every team. She is great against Dragon. She's great against Fire Knight. She's great against Ice Golem. There are no places where she isn't useful. She will help you against those waves, get you to the boss. She will slow down the bosses that can be slowed down. She will turn meter decrease the bosses that can have turn meter decrease. And she will keep everybody alive. In addition, in tough fights like in Iron Twins, you can use her to add to a tanky team. You can see here, she is team healing with Pythion here. And between the two of them, they're going to keep me nice and healthy. Obviously, I have a lot of shields. I have a strength in. I have a block damage buff here. But those buffs don't do the job by themselves. You still need a healer here, and you need a slow on Iron Twins, and she's the one who's bringing that slow. The more often she lands her slow, the easier this boss is going to be. So again, that slow plays in a lot of places, even at endgame. Finally, there is Barbarian faction crypts. Now, unfortunately, this is not open at the moment, so I can't show you this. But Barbarian crypts is often one of those crypts that people solve early, and usually it's at like 185 days, right? Because you're going to get your Scyl of the Drake at 180 days. It's going to take you a couple of days to get her to 6-star, get her all geared out, get her masteried, and then you throw her in the next Barbarian crypt that comes along, and she carries you. You already have High Katoon. You probably have a War Maiden, maybe at 5 stars. And that's really all you need. Even a shield guard. If you have a shield guard that you've run up, you've got the core of an amazing team. And Scyl of the Drakes is your reviver. So she's going to allow you to 3-star every single stage all the way up until the final boss. So she is the key component to making this Barbarian Crypt just super easy. And she's going to let you farm that stage 21 really effectively in the long term. And this is one of the places where you're just going to start getting tons and tons of legendary forge materials. And that's going to help you out in terms of getting the gear that you need to unlock endgame, right? So she becomes a component and not only progressing you in all of the dungeons, getting you better gear there, but even getting you better gear in the forge. So she really does unlock the endgame for a lot of accounts. So yeah, you might get her at 180 days. You might still be in the mid game, but this is the engine that's going to make your team go for the next 6 months to a year. So that is it. That is my Scyl of the Drakes guide. I didn't actually show her off in any fights because those fights sometimes take a while. Scyl of the Drakes does not necessarily speed your teams up. She just keeps them alive, keeps them moving, makes them more successful, and becomes that engine, as I mentioned, to your account. So if you have one of them, if you have 2 of them, build your Scyl of the Drakes, mess around with the builds, see what builds are going to work best with the roster that you have. But my guess is at 180 days, you're going to slot her in somewhere, and you're not going to take her out for another 180 days at least, if not longer. All right, well, I hope you found this helpful. I hope you're excited to get your Scyl of the Drakes. If you've recently gotten your Scyl of the Drakes, please let me know in the comments below how you've built her and where you've put her and what kind of progress you've seen. I do think that 180-day mark is just such a milestone for every free-to-play account, especially because of this champion. And I love to hear the stories about how those accounts all of a sudden take off. So even if you are a longtime player, if you've been playing 3 or 4 years, but you remember what happened when you got your Scyl, let me know in the comments below. I want to hear your story. Okay, that is it for me. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications when I upload a new video. Thank you so much for being here. I've been Colred. I will see you in another video very soon.